Patient log, October 28th. Beginning clinical review and dictation for Jacinda Rowe. Initial intake. The following is the raw audio playback from our session. I find it's more effective to absorb the session in its entirety before structuring my notes. Playback commencing now, I will append my formal analysis at the end. Jacinda, thank you for coming in. The initial intake is really just a space for you to begin. So whenever you're ready.
Right. Let's just get to it. I'm here because my lawyer says I have to be. It's an optic, a box to be checked. My husband, soon to be ex, is filing for divorce on grounds of emotional cruelty. It's a wonderfully soft, vague term, isn't it? And in the face of such an accusation, a responsible, high-powered woman like myself is expected to demonstrate a commitment to self-reflection. It's a performance piece, Doctor. I am the lead. You are the silent audience, and the judge gets the playbill. So the narrative, every story needs a beginning. Mine starts on a trading floor that smelled like stale coffee and entitlement. I was 24, the only woman they hadn't hired as an assistant. They called me Kid until I outmaneuvered a floor of gray-haired lifers on the Halcyon deal, a distressed debt play that made the firm a 9-figure return. After that, they didn't use my first name. It was Rowe. Then I heard through the grapevine it was the dragon. I liked that. You don't get returns by being a lamb. Dragons survive. Dragons conquer. And Owen? Where did Owen fit in? He was my offset, my diversification. I met him at a charity 10K. I was there to beat my last time. He was there because his company bought a table. He was a supply chain analyst. A good man, solid, predictable. He calls his mother every Sunday at 4 p.m. sharp. Does the Times crossword in pen. In a life of violent uncertainty, he was the fixed income asset. Low yield, zero risk. Did I love him? What a useless question. Love isn't an actionable metric. Did I value the service he provided? Yes. He managed the domestic sphere. He created a quiet, orderly port I could return to after I'd been out on stormy seas sinking ships. For 12 years, the arrangement was incredibly efficient. The variable I didn't properly account for was biology. We discussed children. I was clear. My career trajectory was a 90-degree angle. A child was an anchor. I did the responsible things, froze my eggs, saw the fertility specialists. I checked the boxes to keep the conversation tabled, but time, as it does, kept moving. My doctor started using phrases like closing window. Owen heard it, and he started his campaign. He never confronted me, and that's not his way. It was a war of attrition, pamphlets for parenting seminars left on the kitchen island, casual mentions of his brother's kids. He started watching these awful sitcoms where the dad is a lovable moron and the mom is just a mom. And he'd look at me with this soft, disappointed, golden retriever face, and I knew I was being judged, accused. My life, the one I had built, the one that paid for the roof over his head, was being weighed and found wanting. It was a quiet, relentless judgment. Which leads me to the night, the incident, as the lawyers call it. Legacy Capital had just closed the Meridian acquisition. It was a 3-month war. I was running on nothing but cortisol and adrenaline. I flew back on the jet, half a bottle of Krug in my system, still feeling the electric hum of the wind. It's a pure high, Doctor, indescribable. I was apex. Then my phone buzzes. A text from Owen. Major favorite. Come home and celebrate with me? I walked into the apartment and the smell hit me first. Acrid. Smoke. He'd tried to keep a steak warm for 3 hours. It was a hockey puck. and the smoke alarm, that maddening high-pitched chirp every 60 seconds, an auditory water torture. And he's just standing there, in a kiss-the-cook apron, smiling, as if my victory, this massive career-defining thing, was just the opening act for his little domestic play. He asked me what was wrong. I said, "That goddamn noise." "The chirp." He said, "Oh." I guess I didn't notice. And that was it. That's what broke the dam. Not the months of pressure, not the exhaustion, the fact that he could live with that noise, that he could tune out the signal that something was wrong. I looked at him, this man who wanted to create and co-parent a human life with me. And all I saw was a fatal lack of awareness. All I saw was weakness. I asked him how he planned on keeping a child alive if he couldn't even manage a piece of beef. I told him his little propaganda campaign of pamphlets and baby pictures was over. I said, "Queens don't breed with pawns." Then I told him to take his $90,000 a year ambition and get out of my sight. It wasn't clean. It wasn't a scalpel. It was a club, a tactical error. I showed my cards. I lost control. He just looked at me. The soft look was gone. It was replaced by something clear. He took off the apron, folded it, set it on the counter, packed a bag, walked out. The silence he left behind was louder than the chirping. The next day I was relieved. Productive. Day 2, irritated. He was an unscheduled variable. Day 3. The infrastructure started to show. I noticed the bills were all paid. The leaky faucet was fixed. The pantry was stocked. The services he rendered were suddenly visible by their absence. Annoying. Then day 4. A courier. A crisp manila envelope. No letter. Just the filing. He'd highlighted the section on verbal abuse, and he'd attached an appendix. A dated, itemized list of every broken promise, every missed birthday, every, quote, an evidence-based, data-driven argument. A perfect case.
You described the precision of the document, but what did you feel when you read it?
I felt a system breach, a vulnerability I didn't know I had, exposed and ruthlessly exploited. It was humiliating. He used my playbook against me. He took the language of the boardroom, of evidence, of irrefutable data, and used it to dismantle me personally. The man I saw as a pawn had flipped the entire board over, and my primary feeling wasn't sadness. It was white-hot fury. How dare he? So that's the story. That's what you need for your notes. I'm sure you're ticking all your little diagnostic boxes. As for what happens next, it's simple. I'll sit in this chair for the prescribed number of sessions. My lawyer will leverage my commitment to wellness into a swift and private settlement. I will write Owen a check that represents the single greatest return on investment he will ever see. He'll buy a sensible house in a suburb with good schools and marry a kindergarten teacher who will admire his stability. And I will get back to work. I'll make my investors another $1 billion. My picture will be on the cover of Forbes. Alone.
And how does that future feel to you?
You're asking if I'll be lonely. People like me aren't lonely. We're insulated. You know, dragons in the old stories didn't sleep on gold because it was comfortable. They slept on it because it was a hoard, a defense, hard, heavy, and impenetrable. It keeps everything and everyone out. I don't need warmth, doctor. I need armor. A $1 billion portfolio is the thickest armor in the world. Now, tell me, was that vulnerable enough for your report?
Appending notes. Patient maintained narrative control for nearly the entire session, presenting a highly rehearsed, self-aware monologue. the performance of a performance. Her use of corporate and strategic metaphors is not merely a defense mechanism, it appears to be the totality of her framework for relational understanding. Minimal effective response throughout, with two exceptions. First, a flash of genuine, unscripted humiliation and fury when describing her husband's legal filing. This was not about the content of the accusations, but about the tactic, about being outmaneuvered. This narcissistic injury appears to be the primary motivator for her current actions, not the marital dissolution itself. Second, a profound exhaustion surfaced when contemplating her future. She is entirely uninterested in therapy as a tool for insight. It is a means to an end. Still, the session revealed a critical vulnerability. Her identity is built on a foundation of absolute control and superiority. When that was challenged by a person she deemed inferior, the entire structure showed its cracks. Treatment viability remains low, but that injury, that's the only door, the only place where the armor is thin. End voice log.